The trial of Kyle Rittenhouse has begun. Just to make my bias on this very clear, he did nothing wrong, and I think this because I watched the videos. We're not going to front load this with what's happened, so if you're not aware of what's happened with Kyle Rittenhouse, you'll be able to find lots of explainers and watch the videos yourselves all over the internet, because this was a big deal last year. So anyway, let's get on to what's happening with the trial. So in the beginning, we have to get a jury, and that's difficult because when you have highly politicized trials, it means that you getting an impartial jury is quite difficult. And so about a dozen prospective jurors were dismissed Monday after they expressed strong opinions about the case or worried they couldn't be fair. Others worried about their own personal safety. No one wants to be sitting in this chair, one woman said, and but the 20-member panel was finally set by early evening. I figure either way this goes, you're going to have half the country upset with you, and they react poorly, said another woman, who was a special education teacher who had expressed anxiety about serving, but she was indeed chosen. There were 12 jurors and 8 alternates, 11 are women, 9 are men. The court could not immediately provide a racial breakdown of the group, but the panel appeared to be overwhelmingly white. So let's go to a Twitter racist to find out what the racial breakdown is. Oh, one person of color. Sounds about white, says Brooklyn Dad Defiant. If you say so. Moving on, let's go on to what is the details of the case. So, of course, the defense is going to claim that this was self-defense, pure and simple, and I happen to really strongly agree with this, because if you watch the videos of Kyle Rittenhouse being chased and then attacked by radical left-wing Antifa looters who were trying to hurt him, and obviously trying to hurt him, because you can see them literally assaulting him, that seems to be pretty cut and dried.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how he can possibly lose that.
No.
Rittenhouse's attorney, but again, we could end up with a George Floyd trial scenario, so who knows? But his attorneys are saying that he came to Kenosha not to hurt anyone, but to protect businesses and from damage and looting. And they say that the people he shot left him no choice, which seems to be congruent with the facts.
Yes.
This is why you saw him early in the day, cleaning off graffiti, and this is why he was protecting, what was it, a car dealership or something.
Yeah. He's got every reason to think they're trying to kill him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So what do the prosecutors say? Now, this is where it starts getting creative. Rittenhouse's trip to Kenosha will be a key part of their case. He crossed state lines. So he's allowed to cross state lines. They portray him as a wannabe cop who came looking for trouble and fame. By bringing a rifle to the late night protest, this was the primary cause of the deadly encounters. I think the primary cause was the people attacking him because they're lunatics. They also argue that Rittenhouse wasn't there to protect businesses, but to join in other armed counter-protesters with whom he sympathized. Rittenhouse was the aggressor and was there with intent to violently clash with those who opposed his beliefs. It's like, okay, well, why didn't he join the other people? Like, why was he on his own?
It's almost as if they haven't actually seen what happened.
Yeah, I know. Don't get me wrong, points for creativity, but unfortunately, this doesn't seem to map onto the videos that we have seen. Prosecutors had Prosecutors had hoped to bolster their case by introducing as evidence a brief video taken 15 days before the protest shootings that shows Rittenhouse watching some men exit a CVS pharmacy and commenting that he wished he had his rifle so he could shoot them because prosecutors say he baselessly thought they were shoplifters. Thomas Binger, the lead prosecutor, said it showed Rittenhouse's mindset as a teenage vigilante involving himself in things that didn't concern him. But Judge Bruce Schroeder questioned the relevance of the video to the charges. He ruled that it wouldn't be allowed, though he suggested that could be reassessed in his ruling later. As in, something that he says is an offhanded remark 15 days before he was attacked isn't actually relevant to being attacked. So what does Wisconsin law say about the self-defense? Well, it allows someone to use deadly force only if, quote, necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm. And it sets a two-part test for the jurors. First, they have to decide if Rittenhouse really believed that he was in peril. Hindsight may show that he was wrong, but did he sincerely believe it at the time? Now, if you can recall the video of him being beaten to the floor, then clubbed over the head, and other men running at him, one of whom had a handgun, although it could be said that Rittenhouse didn't know he had a handgun because he was drawing it at the time. I think it's fair to say that he thought he was genuinely in peril.
Yeah.
I mean, if it were me, I would think I was genuinely in peril. And next, they must determine if Rittenhouse's belief was objectively reasonable. As in, you're surrounded by a mob of communists who are screeching, "Get him, get him, get him." Is it reasonable to think they're going to attack you?
Maybe a bit.
Yeah. To make that call, jurors will be instructed to consider whether any reasonable person in Rittenhouse's shoes would have also felt they had no choice but to shoot. I would have felt no choice.
Yeah.
And I'd have been a lot less restrained with the shooting than Rittenhouse was as well.
Mm.
Like one of the things that I was amazed with after going through it is that Rittenhouse only shoots people who assault him or are about to assault him. He doesn't just start firing randomly into the crowd who is chasing him. I'm thinking, yeah, but you know.
Remarkably controlled for such a perilous situation.
And for a 17-year-old,
Yeah.
you know, he did really, really well, I thought.
Mm. All those sessions on the rifle range that ranges that he must have enjoyed came to good use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So any other legal factors include Wisconsin law doesn't require someone whose life's in danger to flee before shooting, even though he was fleeing. But jurors can consider whether someone tried to move away from danger as they assess the reasonableness of it. Self-defense can't be invoked by someone if they were the aggressor, but of course he wasn't the aggressor. Again, we've seen the videos. Wisconsin doesn't have a stand your ground law that permits just defending yourself from any attack, no matter how it occurs. But again, I think this is outside of that. Rittenhouse faces 2 counts of homicide, 1 of attempted homicide, and 2 counts of recklessly endangering safety for firing his gun near people adjacent to those being shot, as in the mob. He recklessly endangered the mob that was chasing him. A successful self-defense argument would seem to apply to all 5 counts, but he faces a 6th count, which is possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18, and if the defense which the defense unsuccessfully tried to get dismissed, which is, I mean, maybe the thing that he did wrong here. Maybe if that's, you know, a count that he's actually guilty of, he was under 18, he was carrying a lethal weapon.
Yeah.
Maybe that's that. But if that's all they get him on, then much better than the alternatives, I would say.
Well, yeah, and it's a better alternative than him dying.
Yeah, I'd rather take the punishment for that than getting my face clubbed in by a bunch of crazies.
Yeah.
But anyway, so a bunch of legal experts have weighed in on this, of course, because why wouldn't you? So under self-defense law and precedent, Rittenhouse motives being Kenosha are irrelevant to whether he had a legal right to shoot when threatened. Some experts have said what happens is in the minutes surrounding the shooting. And one legal expert says, if I had a 17-year-old son, I would not encourage him to engage in this kind of behavior, but poor judgment is not a crime. Everybody in that courtroom is going to be thinking he deserved what he got because he put himself in a hostile situation, said another one. What are you doing down there with a gun? Said one who's against him. I suppose that's one thing. But most seem to think that he's got a pretty solid case of self-defense here. Interestingly, we talked about this the other day, but the judge was like, nope, you can't call the people he shot victims, but you can call them rioters and looters because
that's what they were.
Yes, and they were attacking him. So they're not his victims. They're actually the people who are trying to victimize him. And also, you're not allowed to show alleged links between Rittenhouse and the Proud Boys, because the judge has said, well, that's not relevant, which is very interesting. The prosecution wanted to allow evidence that showed that Rittenhouse had links to far-right extremist group, the Proud Boys.
Of course he did.
I'm not even sure if I agree with that characterization, but anyway, moving on. Binger also asked the judge to allow evidence that Rittenhouse attacked a woman in June 2020 as she was fighting his sister. He attacked a woman who was fighting his sister, so he's defending his sister.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting choice of words, that, isn't it?
Nice framing. He also wants to show juror the video from 15 days before, but the judge refused it. Binger said that Rittenhouse's affiliation with the Proud Boys and the fight show how Rittenhouse had a propensity towards violence. He described him as a chaos tourist and a teenage vigilante. God, they make him sound bloody cool, don't they?
They're trying.
Can we get a picture of Rittenhouse up a second, John? Just right. Chaos tourist. Teenage vigilante. My sons have both got really chubby cheeks, and so when I see a young man with chubby cheeks, I just want to grab him and go, oh, he's got chubby cheeks.
Someone's going to make a meme out of this.
Yeah, but no, he's a chaos tourist.
This is what chaos looks like.
I mean, that's just
the literal devil.
That's such a cool phrase.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there was some new footage released that the post-millennial got hold of. We're not going to play it because we don't know what YouTube's rules on these things are at this point, but if we go to the next one, I will talk you through it. So the video was shot via an FBI plane during the riot in August 2020 when Rittenhouse shot 3 men, and it does show the mob. If you can scroll down a little bit, so you can see that in the middle there is the mob, and they're chasing after him, and you can see them running after him. Rittenhouse is walking along just shouting, anyone need medical, as in medical assistance. And is Rosenbaum, who decides that he's a bad person and starts yelling, get him, let's get him. The mob spots him and then attacks him. You see Rosenbaum running at him, getting shot. Someone else, somewhere else, shoots a handgun into the air that you can see on the video, because it's a composite of different videos, so I'm not actually sure which one new one is. I think it's just the above one, but you can see a third person shooting a handgun into the air. And again, it just really doesn't do anything to make Kyle Rittenhouse look like he initiated the conflict.
No.
At all. The FBI have apparently testified in private, according to Jep Sobiek, who's a source I trust on this, that there is a second version of the surveillance tape in HD, but did not provide it to the defense, as per one member of the courtroom. The defense has requested a copy of the HD tape, and if you scroll down, he's got a follow-up tweet here. But they have said that the tape no longer exists.
That's weird, isn't it?
That's very strange. So we've got a copy. Can you have it? No. Also, it doesn't exist anymore. Well, did you destroy the evidence? Where did it go? Did you just misplace it? Is it Hillary Clinton's emails? It's just, we just don't know what's happened here. But Jack thinks that if the FBI had a plane up, they more likely had a Stingray up as well and captured all the electronic comms from the night of the Rittenhouse shooting as well, and they were refusing to share it with his legal team. Well, are the FBI a politicized organ of the United States government? I mean, if the last 5 years is anything to go by, I would say yes. But what do I know? Moving on. We get some specific statements from the case, which are amusing, frankly. So Mark Richards, the defense attorney, said that Rosenbaum, 36, was filmed saying, "Shoot me, N-word, shoot me," at Rittenhouse as he ran up to him and tried to wrestle the gun out of his hands, allegedly, which is why Rittenhouse shot him. I think it's fairly reasonable to say that if you got a communist trying to wrestle your weapon off you, then he's probably going to use it on you. Fair concern, in my opinion. The jury was also shown the rifle used in the killing. So there's a photo of the teenage shooting and teenage shooter killing a skateboarder in the chest with the confrontation, which is the chap who was clubbing him with it. The defense argued that Rittenhouse acted in self-defense after the man began beating him with the skateboard in order to decapitate him. Now, this is part of the defense. I think, look, you don't need to overstate the case here, right? Like, and the way that I saw the clip of it as well, where he's like, well, it could, take his head off, cut his head off or something like that with the skateboard. It's like, look, no one thinks the skateboard is going to cut his head off. Just say he's going to brain him. You could beat someone to death with a skateboard. It's a heavy enough piece of wood. You don't need to be like, oh, it's going to decapitate him.
Yeah, there are lots of forms of damage that skateboards can inflict without decapitation being
exactly, and it's not going to be one of them. But prosecutor Thomas Binger said that mayhem broke out in Kenosha in the wake of the Jacob Blake shooting. Again, not a good guy. Rittenhouse was the sole individual who acted with reckless and malicious intent by shooting Rosenbaum in the back, shooting Huber in the chest, and shooting Gross Krauts in the arm. Got a picture of Gross Krauts after being shot in the arm. Anything you notice about that picture?
Yeah, he's carrying something that looks like
a gun.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you watch the footage, again, we're not going to show the footage, and you can't see the wound on his arm here, thankfully, which is why I chose this picture. But if you watch it, he's literally running up to him after he shot the other two, and he pulls out his gun, and then Rittenhouse shoots him in the arm. So, I mean, he's literally rounding on him with the gun to shoot him. So, again, don't really see how Rittenhouse is the villain here.
No.
That's just such a classic picture as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to the article, like moths to a flame, tourists were drawn to the chaos. There were hundreds of confrontations that night, yet the only person who killed anyone was Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah. But, I mean, he was facing people who were literally attacking him, and one of them had a gun.
Yeah.
So anyway, the testimony shows that Rosenbaum said that if I get either of you two alone, I'll kill you. It's interesting. Not a lunatic or anything.
No.
But we have a statement from Dominic Black, who was dating Rittenhouse's sister and was with him and he's facing charges of his own, actually, of supplying the gun to Rittenhouse. But he testifies in Rittenhouse's defense. And he said that the night was chaotic and he heard gunshots from the direction of Rittenhouse, and Rittenhouse came back and he was frightened. He said, I shot someone. And when he got back, he says that Rittenhouse was pale, scared, and sweating like a pig, and added that he had helped convince Rittenhouse to turn himself into the police following the riot. So it doesn't sound like he was there with a desire to murder. Doesn't sound like he was getting off on having done the murder. But, it sounds like he defended himself.
Yeah.
While in Kenosha, Rittenhouse fatally shot Rosenbaum after he chased Rittenhouse across the parking lot and threw a plastic bag which had something in it at him. Shortly after midnight, they'd been arguing after Rittenhouse put out a dumpster fire. Wow, what a good citizen. Rosenbaum had started the dumpster fire that Rittenhouse put out. And the prosecution claimed, though, that Rosenbaum had confronted other armed men that night, but suffered no ramifications because he appeared non-threatening. So, and Binger literally says, quote, "No one takes him as a serious threat," which is the equivalent of saying, "Your Honor, my client wasn't a threat because he's 5'3" and a manlet." That's literally the defense.
And how is Rittenhouse supposed to know his previous experience anyway?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you're trying to wrestle the gun out of someone's hand, the problem with the gun is it's a great equalizer. It doesn't matter if you're 5'3" or 6'6", a gun will kill you either way. And so don't try and take someone's gun and you won't get shot. And I guess the final part to mention so far about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is that a lot of the media have noticed that Kyle was yawning during the trial. Now, there are psychologically, and confirmed this with Josh, there are reasons that someone might yawn. You can yawn out of nerves, right? This is apparently something that happens. It never happened to me, but this is apparently something that happens. But as the Independents say, he struggled to stay awake and kept yawning as lawyers from both sides argued their cases on Tuesday, according to several photos taken. He let out a yawn when lawyers were giving their opening statements. He again yawned when jurors opened the courtroom. He repeated throughout the hearing, as if he's somehow being disrespectful, right? As if he's been up all night playing video games and, Counter-Strike or something. And it's like, oh yeah, no, I've got the trial tomorrow. Right? Oh God, I'm going 3 hours sleep. I'm going to be so tired. Or it could be that maybe the kid has hard time sleeping because of being at the center of a national absolute storm.
Perhaps even international, given that we're covering it.
A good point, yeah. But like the unbelievable amount of pressure the poor kid must be under, I'd have a hard time sleeping too.
Yes.
So in conclusion, Kyle Rittenhouse has done nothing wrong. I expect the trial to reflect that because it's such an obvious case of self-defense and the prosecution's position seems to be laughable.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, needless to say, dare I say it, he actually sounds like a reasonable bloke.
And he sounds like he was doing the upstanding thing of, cleaning up the community, putting out fires and defending it from communist looters.
Yeah. I mean, again, you can always come back to the fact that, well, what was he doing with a gun there in the first place? But on reflection, it's just as well that he did have it, because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to defend himself.
Exactly. It would have gone a lot worse for him had he not had it. And he was asked to go down and help, because he worked at a place, I think it was, and he was asked to go down and help protect it from looters, because apparently it's fine if there are just dozens and dozens of people running around burning the city down.
Yeah. I mean, the sick part of this, really, or the egregious part of this, and I think we both, I think, suspected this from the start, really, is that his crime has less to do with the fact that he defended himself and more to do with the side that he's against.
Yes.
Which has everything to do with what the riots were all about.
Yes. And you can see that in the attempt at politicizing and connecting Rittenhouse to the Proud Boys. Well, they're trying to say, well, I see this is a political agenda. He wants to go and shoot Antifa. And it's like, well, you don't have any evidence for that.
Is there any evidence that he has anything to do with the Proud Boys? Retweeting anything that
I haven't seen it, actually. But then the judge refused to have it submitted as evidence. So.
Yeah, but even so, it's not exactly a slam dunk, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, like, if that's the case, then, I mean, everything is a political crime now.
Yes.
Because everyone has some connection to something.
Yeah.
In the way that, the current cultural atmosphere is, how could you not be connected to something in some way? But,
no, just another heresy case.
Yeah, basically. They want a political win. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And just like the George Floyd thing, I felt it was like at least, okay, in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, maybe it is a political thing. Maybe you can make that argument. But I always felt for the George Floyd thing, it was totally not political at all. And so making that a political sort of win for the left, I felt was very cruel. And I thought an injustice was done there. Thanks for watching this clip from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. We broadcast live on lotuseaters.com at 1 p.m. UK time every weekday. And we also have loads more content that we don't put on YouTube, such as the memes and video comments from our community. Every week, we also have new episodes of our regular series, Contemplations and Epochs. In Contemplations, Josh explores interesting and diverse topics, such as the science behind the need for fathers in the home, or why people believe in ghosts and the paranormal. In Epochs, Bo and I go on, often at length, about various events and periods in history that are particularly fascinating. We've just finished a 5-part mini-series on the 100 Years' War, which I particularly enjoyed right up until the end of it when, spoiler alert, the French won. Alongside our excellent team of in-house writers, we also commission articles from outside contributors, and silver and gold tier subscribers have access to an audio recording of each premium article, so you don't have to read it yourself. We interview various contemporary thinkers and entertainers, as well as host the recordings of our live events. We also have a series of premium video content on the site, which we think is particularly worthwhile, or we simply can't put on YouTube because their editorial policies prohibit reasonable discussion on the subject. Personally, I think the deep dives we've been doing into critical theory and critical race theory are most important, as we reveal the origins of intersectionality and the plan that the radical left has for our societies. We are funded almost exclusively by our subscribers, so if you'd like to join us in the work we're doing, head over to lotuseaters.com and we'll see you there.